The Curse, a 10-episode miniseries from Nathan Fielder and Benny Safdie, uses a combination of narrative, visual style, and sound design to work in tandem to build tension, blurring the lines between comedy and horror. Using the comedy of discomfort, as defined by Heidi Moore, we can organize The Curse into its genre based on these aspects, as a mode of comedy as going beyond dark comedy and parody an empathetic range by making the audience feel extreme discomfort. In order to achieve this, The Curse creates tension and cringe humor through the discomfort that comes with Asher and Whitney, both lacking awareness of their own privilege, while lauding themselves as infallible forces of good, along with claustrophobic and unending camera takes, and an audio design made up of a horrific wall of noise. What the Safdies bring to the screen is a visceral and modern visual style that reinforces the contemporary subject matter of their work. With their heavy use of tension-building single takes, hypnotic zooms, imperfect dialogue, and electronic-heavy scoring, the Safdies create anxiety-inducing situations that transfix the audience to the screen. Take this scene in their Diamond District masterpiece from 2019, where Howard, played by Adam Sandler, attempts to juggle multiple and overlapping situations, all while his new black Opel gym arrives.
Then I get creative.
Don't move.
You heard what he said. Keep your hands, don't move.
What are we doing? What the fuck
There
is...
you go again. Stop fighting
It's
me.
not necessary.
No.
The long zoom lens creates an incredibly claustrophobic environment by bringing the background closer to the foreground, trapping the characters in their environment. This style of cinematography creates the feeling that the audience is invading the character's space, every shot acting as a close-up of some kind and bringing an uncanny intensity to the scene. The Safdies incorporate an immersive soundscape to both establish realism as the defining tone and to add another dimension to the congestion of the visual and narrative elements. By implementing realistic dialogue that includes speech imperfections, in addition to many characters talking at once, the audience is brought into the realistic, chaotic, and contemporary world. Secondly, the Safdies opt for an electronic score that features retro synthesizers, pop and hip-hop songs, and an emphasis on rhythm to act as a sort of structure to their quickly paced films that make the audience's heart race.
Nathan Fielder's style was based originally in comedic reality television. Nathan Fielder's Nathan for You was about Nathan using his business degree to help small struggling businesses, but through unorthodox and very odd ways. This resulted in many cringe-worthy interactions on the show between someone who is very confused but hopeful and Nathan Fielder, who is pretending at all times that he is not in on his own joke. His show, The Rehearsal, is also a warped presentation of reality, but to an extreme. In an attempt to curb anxieties of hard conversations and worries of the future, Nathan Fielder attempted to present a solution through rehearsing anxious events that participants act in order to be prepared for the real thing. As the episodes go on, the lines of reality become blurred, as Nathan becomes a participant himself, directing himself and others, confusing the audience as to whether he's in character, interacting with the participants, or is just as lost and confused in his own creation as we are. Nathan Fielder is someone who has engaged with the comedy of the discomfort through a presentation of reality, as his visual and narrative style is centered around interactions with real, unscripted people. His collaboration with Benny Safdie proved that he could weaponize it differently. The Curse is able to create the comedy of the discomfort through the spectrum of absurdity. A scene can go from either horror to comedy extremely quickly, as they both reside within the confines of the absurd. The narrative is able to weave through these two modes by introducing situations that are meant to push the boundaries of social norms. Whitney goes to the art show and is screamed at and is unsure how to cope, but it's funny because she doesn't know how to react and is flustered due to the discrepancy in an established social norm. However, when Whitney is arguing with the family that wants to put an AC system in her home, it builds tension and becomes harder to watch because the norms she is pushing come from a place of anger and control.
Safdie and Fielder are not interested in crafting a polished show where each edit, word of dialogue, and movement from the actors is carefully considered. Instead, authenticity and realism is at the forefront of their minds, most notably in their dialogue. The Curse uses two primary modes to emphasize the awkwardness and discomfort in a scene. Firstly, allowing the actors to include speech imperfections and filler words such as and like, to both feed the realism of the show and to demonstrate the anxiety felt by the characters and how, out of their element, the characters find themselves. Secondly, incorporating painfully long pauses in actors' dialogue as you watch their mental gears grind, hoping for a solution to the awkward situation they may find themselves in. In this short scene between Asher and Abshir, Asher stumbles his way through the conversation as his words demonstrate both of the ways the Curse uses dialogue to create tension.
Where I'm from, we don't play with that. Just please, just stop it.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask where you're from?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, okay. And you, your culture, you believe in curses? Here, Asher lacks any sort of wit or social awareness to handle the situation correctly, and the ways in which he delivers his dialogue convey all the information the audience needs to understand Asher's discomfort, which is a primary aspect of the comedy of Discomfort. Heidi Moore, a media scholar from the University of Cincinnati, finds this exact phenomena in her research about Larry David's popular sitcom Curb Your Enthusiasm. She says that edgy embarrassment and the feeling of a visceral wince by setting up situations in which we know disaster will befall defines many of these scenes in The Curse. The creators of The Curse implement a wide array of visual elements that often overlap specifically with the style of one of its creators, Benny Safdie. In this short but potent scene, Whitney and one of Fliplanthropy's camera operators have a short conversation that, on the outside, is played off as two simply joking with each other, but subtextually allows the audience to recognize the authenticity in the camera op's words.
Yeah. Oh yeah, fucking spoiled TV host can film her own TV show? You don't appreciate us. I almost got you.
Although the primary element of this scene is the dialogue, it's not just the words these two say to each other, but the underlying visual elements that take the conversation from awkward to anxiety-inducing. First, with the use of an incredibly long lens, the tree-consumed background is brought forward to create a more two-dimensional space, trapping the eye from escaping the uncomfortable scene, allowing the audience to witness the awkwardness of their conversation and ultimately heighten the realism as the scene plays out in real time. This scene, which features inherently funny banter between two people, becomes horrifying. Heidi Moore refers to this exact spectacle, stating that the comedy of Discomfort makes the audience laugh not by delighting them, but by rather making them feel a certain agony. Safdie and Fielder implement an array of other visual elements to create a consistent feeling of discomfort through the awkward and disjointed comedy. Take this scene, for example, where Whitney attempts to persuade a pair of new homebuyers to sign a contract, ironically aimed to protect the land of the indigenous tribe before they finalize the purchase of the home. Here, the cinematography tinkers with rules of composition to subconsciously disrupt the eye, creating a sense of tension and uneasiness. As Whitney approaches the car, her face is obstructed by the frame of the car, congesting the space, whereas other parts of the frame are wide open and seemingly empty. This mode of visual tension creates a sort of visual dissonance, keeping the audience eye on their toes, forever anticipating some visual resolution that they'll never experience.
The Curse is able to create discomfort in its audio design through its incessant use of non-diegetic sound, regularly to build tension during scenes of argument and confrontation. Distorted foreboding synths and piano can be heard in the background. The sounds themselves are created to provide an air of discomfort. It is mostly used in this regard, to add on to the scenes just to make them that more tense. A specific scene would be when Asher is breaking into Abshir's home. As Abshir's two children talk to each other, a knock at the door interrupts them. The sound begins to become increasingly disturbing as a drill begins to whir behind the closed door. It is accompanied by frantic movement and slow zoom-ins from the camera to establish tension and unease in the face of danger. While it is only Asher behind the door, for the two girls it means an intruder, or someone taking their home away. The sound design is incorporated to create something that would lean towards horror than it ever would comedy, but once Asher is introduced to the audience, his oafish tendencies and impulses re-establish his non-threatening presence and provide a space for humor to seep back in. Music is mostly reserved to the soundtrack and credits. For instance is when Asher raps the entirety of Hell Yeah Pimp the System by Dead Prez, replacing the N-word with the phrase N-word.
You hungry, my N-word? Hell yeah! You wanna get paid, my N-word?
Both of these scenes create uncomfortable moments by its refusal to look away. In each scene, the song is sung in its entirety, building off of the unease that surrounds public singing, and the unease that accompanies a white man rapping.
To conclude, Nathan Fielder and Benny Safdie's The Curse sticks close to the pillars of the comedy of discomfort defined by Heidi Moore. Through the use of a jarring narrative, claustrophobic visuals, and a chilling soundscape, The Curse morphs from a comedy to a horror in the blink of an eye.